or whether the air mass as you dive gonna push on it and the dive stick's gonna push against it. But you would like to see, you know, that battle only start after a certain, like, you know, if that is the sail and that is the dive stick position, you want a certain gap so the sail can breathe. Because this is what allows your glider to steer. If you have the dive sticks kicking into the sail, as you say already by 1/3 of VG, that's no good because it instantly locks your glider on the rock. You know? That's why you need to see the sail breathe, but when you finally touch, it should stay perfectly good.
Yeah, I have a question. If the glider gets a bit older, they seem to shrink a bit, and the pitch gets very heavy, so you drop the VG, the dive sticks a bit. Does that make the glider more unsafe?
Also a good question. The gliders do actually age in a way that, yeah, there's two reasons for the shrinking. One is the sun that shrinks them. This depends on the miler. Another is, you know, all the fabric, when you wrinkle it a lot, produces those micro wrinkles, and they produce a fair bit of detour. You know, every sailor knows that. You know, the more you crimp things up and then you try to, and you don't see the lengths again. You know, both of that adds, and the better fix is not to go down on the dive sticks on the glass tip glider, but to go down on this point, because when the sail shrinks, it's going to pull this point in, and the only way to pull it is because this is what pulls it. It also pulls not only in, but it pulls up. Now you end up with a tip that is high, and if you make the dive stick sag, you're still going to feel, because this is the last bit, a fair bit of bar pressure, and you think this comes from too much pitch, but it's what you call sail pitch. You're better off getting a different ring here that sets the sail flat, or you also shorten that glass tip here. This glider shows this problem, you know, it has no trailing edge tension for the reason that this is now a little too long, and if you shorten this, I would just show you by just opening that lever a little bit. You open it, and you get more tension again, you know? So this is not that the glass tip was getting bigger and bigger, it's just that the whole sail was shrinking and now you need to adjust it down. But it's better, to answer your question, to do it on the last leg and not on the dive stick. Because if you do it on the dive sticks, you create what we had basically, you know, the first generation topless glider was actually the topless Lamouette design. It was very innovative then, but of course it was the first one, so it had a few flaws. And one was that the dive sticks were low and not solid enough, you know. But the sail angle was really, like the tip was really high. So it always felt like there's plenty, you know. You could do a speed gliding without dive sticks because the sail would not go divergent, you know. And you would think, oh, this is really safe because even the sail has a lot of washout already. No, it's not, because you try to reduce that bar pressure by bringing the dive sticks down, and you have nothing when you go weightless. The Icaro glider was different, that the angle of that tip was very flat. If you pull full VG without dive sticks, the sail would be divergent. So you would never think of lowering the dive sticks. That was actually like a safer glider then. Also it felt scary without dive sticks, but that battle was clearly harder, you know. The sail would push harder and the dive sticks would push harder against it. So pitch-wise that was good. Handling-wise that's not so good. That's why sometimes it's better to find a good compromise. Like the light split is a perfect compromise. But you see, this is actually what I do when I have to make a setup. Exactly those questions. Where do you put that tip for that compromise between handling and safety? If you get it too high, people will wind down dive sticks, and they have an unsafe flight. If you get it too low, you have no handling from the beginning.
How often do you check once you've got the right sticks?
How often you check?
Yeah, once you've got the sticks.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that, you know, when you set up a glider, originally we did it with strings over the keel, that's not so good. Then eventually you're doing your symmetry all perfect, you try then to check it with this gauge, and you see it's fairly accurate. Like you can hardly get...
Who has Steve Gale's phone number, please? We need it desperately.
Steve Gale's phone.
Anybody?
I got it.
Can you repeat?
Steve Gale, his phone number we need.
Clive's got it.
Clive's got it. Clive's got it.
No, thank you.
So, if you had a gauge like this, you'd be surprised how well you can also set up for symmetry. You'll be also surprised when you use it, how often you have to make little changes. Now why is that? You might have set up your glider in a way that that wing was covered by another wing, while this wing was all in the heavy wing and you're setting it up there. You should not think that the glider is so stiff that it never reacts to that. You might end up having 0.2 degrees less. That means you could, in the increment of a quarter of a hole or 2 holes even, sometimes have to readjust after a season, half a season or so. You know? That is still there. It becomes less and less. Why is that? When you look into this construction, you will see there's a cable. The cable goes into, there's a swage, then there's a bolt, then there's a hole in the dive stick. If you load the whole thing, because it hasn't been preloaded hard, you know, all these little things might give, like the side cables. You know, if you step on your side cables, you will see those lever kings, those swages, they're gonna elongate a little bit. Once you have elongated it, it gets a lot harder, because then there is no give. You know, it's like a plastic deformation. So a good way to really go is, and we do that in the factory, but we don't do it to the limit, you know, that you load those dive sticks by holding the leading edge and really push down with 20 kilos. So you stretch out all these little possible deformations so they don't. Because most of all, you want to see a stiff system, not one that can absorb a lot of shock. You take the shock ability out of the system, but it's more reliable, it's more stiff. The reason why we use steel cables and not Vactron is exactly that. Vactron, it's for a dive stick, would be unbreakable. You cannot hammer on it hard enough that the whole shock can kill that Vactron, but it's too flexible. We want to see the opposite. We want to see a very, very stiff cable that almost has no give. You know, that's why you see we have actually moved from a 2mm to 2.5 to a 3mm cable, some even. Then there is cables that have less twist. This is all for making them stiffer and stiffer. And with a stiffer system, okay, this is with a stiffer system, you do not have to do this remeasuring so much, but sometimes you might have to when you get them as well. Okay.
Thank you.